and they don't know that they have these ongoing formalities. And then they learn the hard way that you're supposed to do meeting minutes, you're supposed to do tax returns, you're supposed to follow these rules. And in 50% of all cases, people are able to pierce through the veil and get at your personal asset. So clearly, half
And Garrett is on the other side of the coin from those other predatory ambulance-chasing attorneys.
Yeah, it's interesting, Robert. The year that the Supreme Court allowed attorney advertising, where attorneys could solicit for car accidents, was the same year that Wyoming allowed for the first ever LLC. So it's kind of funny that happened in 1977, attorney advertising and protection from LLCs.
What is an LLC for the layman?
A limited liability company. It's the most popular entity now available. It offers asset protection and flexible taxation. It's a great way to protect your assets.
Yeah, and one of the ways I met Garrett was because there was, Garrett lives in Reno, Nevada, and I live in Phoenix, Arizona, but there was a case where this entrepreneur built a huge lumber company, but his daughter hit somebody in the crosswalk with her car, and he lost everything. Because the attorney just, but he had a corporation, he thought he was protected. But that kind of woke me up. I said, my God, this guy has his corporation. He's not that stupid. Very sophisticated guy. But his daughter runs somebody over down in the crosswalk. And the court took it to the father. Why does that happen, Garrett?
Well, if you don't follow the corporate formalities, if you don't follow what the courts and the legislatures want you to do, an attorney can pierce through that corporation, that lumberyard corporation, and reach the personal assets of the owners. And so, following these formalities are really easy. It's really dramatic if you don't, though. You can lose all of your personal assets.
Well, we got to go using attorney talk. So this is the Rich Dad Show. We keep it dog shit simple, okay?
All right.
So the point here is a lot of times people say, well, I have a corporation, or they have this, but they don't follow the rules. Or like you say, a lot of people, my poor dad always said this, everything's in my name. The house is my name, the car is in my name. And that's when you call them sole proprietors. And what does sole stand for?
Someday you'll lose everything.
And as the economy worsens, and we have our fearless leader Biden saving us from Russia, and inflation is going through the roof, which inflation kills the poor and middle class, lawsuits will increase, which is possibly true.
That is absolutely true, Robert. In times of stress, litigation goes up. People have time to look for people to sue. And you better have your assets protected before you're sued.
Any comments on that, Blair?
Well, most small guys in the S quadrant don't even think about it. They don't even, doesn't even cross their minds, and they can get wiped out instantly. They can be stolen from, they can be ripped off and sued. So it's something that most people don't even look at. And
so that's why, so when you talk about piercing the corporate veil, you talk about formalities. I mean, when you form a corporation, a lot of times people say, well, I formed a corporation, or I have an LLC, I have an S corporation, I have a C corporation, but they don't follow the rules after that. Is that correct?
Well, a lot of times, Robert, and you mentioned this in your foreword, to fail not fail, people set it up online. And they don't know that they have these ongoing formalities. And then they learn the hard way that you're supposed to do meeting minutes, you're supposed to do tax returns, you're supposed to follow these rules. And in 50% of all cases, people are able to pierce through the veil and get at your personal asset. So clearly half the people are not following the rules. So, and they're not hard to follow. That's the issue. I mean, it's so easy to follow these rules.
When you talk about veil, what does that mean to you as an attorney?
Well, we think of veil as kind of a traditional covering for a woman's face, and that's what it is in the corporation. It does give you a little bit of protection, but it's not like an iron wall. I mean, if you don't maintain the veil, people can pierce through it and reach your personal assets. So it's a manner of protection, but it's not a steel wall.
So what do you think about these ambulance chasers? I know a lot of them personally. And they can't wait.
Well, the system incentivizes them, Robert, and we're not going to change that system. The system also allows us to have LLCs and corporations. So I always recommend that my clients have a personal umbrella policy of insurance, home and auto, an extra $1 million of coverage is only $400 a year. Then have all of your assets in LLCs. If there's a car wreck, which is one of the biggest risks out there, there's plenty of insurance for the attorneys to go after. And then your other assets are in LLCs. It's not a good use of an attorney's time who's on a contingency. They only get paid when they collect. It's not a good use of his time to fight through a Nevada or Wyoming LLC. So
Actually going online and filing a corporation, like I won't mention the name of the company, but they're always advertising.
It happens all the time, Robert. The people feel like they are getting protected, but you don't know what you don't know. And these online companies are not telling you that you have these ongoing requirements to stay protected. So if you set up your entity online, go check and make sure that you have all the paperwork, you're doing the annual minutes, you're paying the annual fees. Too many people are not.
And so that's what Veil Not Fail is about your book, is because you still have to follow the rules.
Right, and this isn't taught in school, and the online providers don't give you the information. You've got to get this information on your own.
Yeah, and because of Garrett, like I said, Kim and I just did a major, big-time investment, the biggest in my lifetime. But immediately, first, what's the name of this thing? And it's not called Robert and Kim's biggest asset. It's just some little obnoxious name.
Yeah, it's your favorite street or river or whatever. You just don't use your personal name on those entities because, people are out there looking. The more you have, as you said, Robert, the bigger the target you are. And this society is geared towards litigation. That we're not going to change.
And what do you personally, I know you like those ambulance chasers because they give you a lot of business, but they're a different breed of cat, aren't they?
They are, and some of them are friends of mine here in Reno. And, they're good guys, but the system incentivizes them to go after everybody. And, that's the life they live.
And then I don't know how many entities and sub-entities we have, but Garrett, I would never do them.
That's true, Robert. You have quite a few entities. And again, you've been prudent. You've learned the hard way after that one tenant issue. And so many people come to me and they have learned the hard way, and now they're going to take steps to protect themselves. Well, right. Don't go through that experience. Set up these entities right off the bat, and then take the steps to maintain them properly so they can't pierce the veil.
So I'll put Sarah on the spot right here. Sarah, you just bought your rental property, right?
Yes.
What do you have protecting it?
It's in an LLC.
And Do you have somebody like Garrett following up on it?
Yes, we have an attorney in Indiana that took care of that for us.
But is he following the procedures?
So far.
So Garrett, how does somebody like Sarah check on make sure that they're following the procedures?
Well, we want to make sure that when the corporation was formed, not only did you have the articles, but you have the operating agreement, the meeting minutes, the issuance of certificates. All that is important. On an annual basis, you need to have meeting minutes showing that you had a meeting. A lot of promoters, Robert, say that with an LLC, you don't need to have a meeting. And when you get into court, the judge and jury goes, wait a minute, how do you run a business, an LLC or a corporation for 10 years without a meeting? You know, it's just not realistic. And so you need to follow all these formalities.
So can, let's say I live in Texas and you in Reno. Can I hire you?
Yes, we set up and maintain entities, LLCs and corporations in all 50 states.
So Sarah has her property in Indiana, right?
That's right.
So can she hire you?
She should hire me.
I hear that all the time. But Garrett says it best. He says, you can't put your seatbelt on after you crash. And that's all a lot of people do. So, well, I'm driving without a seatbelt, but you go through the windshield and you go, what happened?
Well, and if you've been sued, Robert, it's too late to set up an entity.
Right.
Like you say, I mean, the court is not going to give you the protection. The attorney's going to have a field day with the fact that you tried to, it's really called a fraudulent conveyance or transaction. You can't do a fraudulent transaction trying to put your personal assets into a corporation after you've been sued.
Can't do it, huh? So the court doesn't like that.
The court is like a bull seeing red when you do that.
Any comments there, Blair?
Yeah, the education that Garrett provides is priceless because you work so hard to build whatever you're building, and it can be gone in an instant for no good reason other than just being careless. And so, in the past when I started my businesses, I said, "Well, I can't afford that. I can't protect this." And you know what? It always comes back, particularly if you and here's the funny thing: it comes back if you're successful. If you're not successful, nobody's going to pay any attention to you. But once you become successful, then you become a target.
Amen. Amen.
Absolutely.
Amen.